Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so your mother always told you, and probably your local nutritionist or dietitian as well. And it is a good time to get a lot of important foods and nutrients into your diet. What I'm going to do today is baked oatmeal with fruit and nuts. And these are going to be things that are dried primarily as far as the fruits, not all, but they're things that are seasonal in spring. And we're going to bake it, which takes longer, but it gives it a little bit nicer texture as well. I'm going to start with 1 3/4 cup of low-fat milk. I'm using skim, 1% would work well, 2% if that's as low as you can go. And I've got 2 teaspoons of butter in here. I'm going to put this in the microwave for about 1.5 to 2.5 minutes, just until the milk gets steamy and the butter's melted. When you get this nice and steamy, it's ready to go, and that shortens the time that it's going to take for some of that to happen. Now, I'm also going to add to this at this point 1 cup of old-fashioned oats and about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Now, I have over here an example of the different forms that you'll find oatmeal, except for the one that's instant, and that's partly because I don't like it very well. But what you can see here are steel cut oats, and they're still pretty much in the shape. They've been cut a little bit, but you could still see the shape of the kernel itself here, or the oat kernel. All of them are whole grains, so nothing has been removed from any of them. It's just the amount that they've been cut and the amount that they've been rolled. These are old-fashioned oats, and these are quick oats, and you can see the difference. The old-fashioned oats are in larger pieces, so they're going to take a little bit longer to cook. The finer the piece and the more crushed it becomes, the quicker it's going to cook. Again, these are completely whole. The problem with some of the instant ones is that they have a lot of things added to them that you may not want added, and the texture becomes, to me, a little bit gluey, pasty kind of texture. So I don't go any finer in chunk than the quick oats, which actually will cook in just a moment or two as well. We wanted to stir the oats we have in here. These are the old-fashioned variety, and when you bake them, they actually soften, but they still retain a little bit more of their nuttiness than they would otherwise. Next, we're going to put in here, I've cut up about 1/4 of a cup of dried apricots, and we're just going to stir those in. So we've got some dried fruit. Now, you could use whatever dried fruit you have. I'm using dried apricots and 1/4 of a cup of dried cranberries. Raisins work well, blueberries, cherries. If you've done some of your own drying, if you have some dried strawberries, for instance, those would be really nice in here too. Next thing's going in here is about 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. Again, we're just going to stir that in and let it dissolve a little bit. That gives a lot of nice flavor. You could use, since the sugar is really only providing flavor, if you wanted to use a brown sugar substitute, you could do that as well. Next thing I have is 1/2 of an apple. And I want to grate this in because I want the pieces to be very fine. Now, the kind of apple you use when you cook is usually one that's a little bit tart, and I'm actually using a Granny Smith apple. But because it's going to be in very small pieces anyway, and I don't want to do my fingers, so I'm not going to do the very end there, you could use a much sweeter apple if you had a Red Delicious or a Fiji or a Jonathan or a Golden Delicious. Any kind of apple that you have that you'd like to eat would work well in this. We just want to grate it in so that it's in fine pieces and will cook real fast. Stir those together, and then we're going to put it in a 350-degree oven without any kind of a cover for about 15 minutes. And the whole thing is only going to take about 30 minutes for the baking to take place. After 15 minutes, we're going to take the next step. This is still not cooked well enough. You can see that there's still a lot of milk in there. What I'm simply going to do is stir it together a little bit. The top is going to be getting a little bit drier than the part underneath, so we're going to stir it around a little bit. And then we're going to add a topping to it. It gives it kind of a streusel effect and makes it taste really, really good. I've got 2 more tablespoons of brown sugar, and again, you could use the reduced or substitute variety if you chose to. I'm going to sprinkle those over the top. And then on top of that, I've got 3 tablespoons of either chopped walnuts or chopped pecans, whichever you have available to you or you prefer. And you can leave them a little bit chunky so that people really know they're there. And this is then going to go back in the oven for another 15 minutes at the same 350 degrees, again without any kind of a lid on it. And then you'll be ready to eat. After that last 15 minutes in the oven, you get a nice crunchy top, but the oatmeal itself is still creamy and chewy and sweetened with the dried fruit and the brown sugar. This serves 4, and it's actually at its best right when it comes out of the oven. So try and have 4 people ready to have breakfast right about the time this comes out. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.